If any of you follow me over on Twitter, you'd no doubt have seen me being quite negative about the current state of the Final Fantasy series. Releases have slowed to a crawl under poor director choices, and it's unlikely to get any better anytime soon, but that is a whole nother video for a different day. I want to bring some positivity back into my life on the Final Fantasy front. It's easy to forget that it was once my favourite series, and that it is essentially responsible for my love of JRPGs to begin with. I still have a great deal of love for Final Fantasy, and I'd love to see it return to form. And what better way is there to bring love and positivity back to Final Fantasy than to reminisce about my favourite entries and rank them 1 to 5. Just a couple of things before we jump right into the list. This video isn't sponsored by Secret Lab, but I did have the opportunity to review one of their chairs recently and I absolutely loved it. If you are in the market for a comfortable gaming chair, you can check out their range using my affiliate link in the video description, which can really help the channel out. In terms of the top 5 list, I considered excluding certain spin-offs or spin-offs altogether, but the list I came up with using only main numbered titles was just kind of boring and predictable. Plus, some of my most played and most loved Final Fantasy entries are spin-offs, so there are a couple in the list, but they definitely deserve their spots. And finally, this list is obviously my opinion. We all have the capacity to love different things. These are just the 5 Final Fantasy games I personally love the most. And in terms of their ranking, numbers 5 to 2 are pretty close to inseparable and they could be swapped around pretty easily. It's only number 1 that really stands out among my top 5. And now, on with the video. There was a time when I was really down on Final Fantasy X. I didn't like that for a huge portion of the game it seems like the antagonist is a giant sentient shark fin. You've really got to keep playing though, and there is terrific payoff in the end. Final Fantasy X is home to some amazing characters, Seymour and Auron specifically. In fact, you may have noticed Maester Seymour in the intro I've been using for a few weeks now. Gameplay wise, it's also one of the strongest in the series. The sphere grid is one of the better character customization mechanics, the turn-based battle system is incredibly refined and fun as hell, and I love that one of the collectibles is literally learning a new language which unlocks more dialogue and story. The writing is also fantastic for the most part. There are some genuinely moving moments in this game. It may be the birthplace of that infamous laughing scene, but Final Fantasy X is no joke. It's truly one of the best entries in the series. World of Final Fantasy is honestly one of the most underrated games in recent times. I called it my game of the year when it first launched in 2016, and I now own it on PS4, PC and Switch, and I'm still not tired of it. While the successive teams of Nomura, Tabata and now Nomura again flounder about with the main series titles, a first-time director, Hiroki Chiba, was able to deliver one of the most delightful and addictive Final Fantasy entries ever made. It honestly feels like a disservice to call it a spin-off. New to the Final Fantasy series in this title is monster collecting, but it runs further than just catching a few iconic Final Fantasy creatures and sending them into battle. It actually has one of the most interesting turn-based systems I've come across. Monsters can be caught, transformed or evolved, leveled up and customized, but you don't send them out into battle alone. You create stacks. The main characters you play as can transform themselves from a little chibi character into a fully grown one, and each monster has a size category. As a Lilikin, you can sit on top of a large monster while a small monster rides on top of your head, and as a giant, you can place a medium and a small monster on top of your head. Stack setups and tactics in battle get really deep, far too deep to get into in this video, and the game has far more to offer than just this. You'd think it would have a throwaway story since all the focus is on monster collecting and stacking, but the story is charming and a real treat for Final Fantasy fans. I honestly can't overstate how good World of Final Fantasy actually is. Well, we all saw this coming, didn't we? Is it even possible to have a top 5 Final Fantasy list without Final Fantasy VII? Now, if I were to include all the extended universe stuff like Advent Children, Crisis Core and Dirge of Cerberus, it would really be fighting tooth and nail for the #1 spot. Crisis Core is still one of the best handheld games out there, and while I don't think it was better than Final Fantasy VII itself, it comes damn close. I also might be one of the only people alive that really enjoyed both Dirge of Cerberus and the Advent Children movie. In terms of Final Fantasy VII itself though, the graphics may not have aged well, but everything else did wonderfully. It's still a story you can appreciate today, its ATB battle system is still a whole lot of fun, and the cast of characters is among the strongest the series has to offer. I really don't think there is as much nostalgia involved as people might think. If you can get past the cubes and pipe cleaners they call character models, you're likely to find it one of the most enjoyable JRPGs out there to this day. I love World of Final Fantasy, but if there is one reason I couldn't exclude spin-offs from this list, that reason would be Theatrhythm Curtain Call. Between the first Theatrhythm Curtain Call, and the Theatrhythm arcade game in Japan, All Star Carnival, I've put over 1,000 hours into this series. The amazing thing about Theatrhythm is that it doesn't just rely on having arguably the biggest and best library of video game music out there. It's actually one hell of an amazing music rhythm game all the way down to its base design. The way it incorporates RPG elements by having you build a party of iconic characters from the series, having you level them up and customize their abilities, and having multiple different styles of music rhythm mechanics that translate the elements of Final Fantasy from an RPG into a completely different genre is simply masterful. Final Fantasy IX is not only my favourite Final Fantasy, it's one of my favourite games of all time. It wasn't exactly my entry into JRPGs, but I do credit it as the game that made me truly fall in love with the genre. There are very few games I can say I love every single aspect of, right down to the tiniest detail, but Final Fantasy IX is undoubtedly one of them. I've replayed it so many times over the years, and there is never a part of the game I dread doing. There is nothing I've gotten sick of after all these years. I love the battle system, even the trance bit that people usually don't find very appealing. I'm one of the few people who absolutely loves Tetramaster, it's my favourite side game in the entire series. I love the characters, even the characters that have minor roles seem interesting in the world of Final Fantasy IX. Like, who is Lani? Look at that awesome looking weapon. I want to learn more about this character that hangs around for all of 2 minutes. Then there is Beatrix, who I think has the best design in the entire Final Fantasy franchise. I even have her tattooed right on my forearm. The soundtrack is one of Uematsu's best, and even he referred to it as his favourite. He was told it would be fine to compose around 20 tracks for the game, but he then spent a year creating over 150 tracks, with 140 of them appearing in-game. And finally, the story. So well written, so well paced, it's an amazing narrative from start to finish. It's able to tell individual stories for each of the main characters, and never does it feel like filler for the main story of the group as a whole. I love Final Fantasy IX, almost more than anything, but you've listened to me ramble on for long enough. Now it's your turn. Head on down to the comments and let everyone know what your top 5 Final Fantasy games are. And just a quick reminder, if you're after an amazingly comfortable chair, check out the link below to learn more about Secret Lab's range of gaming chairs.
Thanks for the liking, subscribing, and the sharing!
And I'll see you all soon.